1, start exercise.
Good morning from the International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. I'm NASA's Sandra Jones, and we're bringing you live coverage of a spacewalk today to install a modification kit in preparation for ongoing solar array upgrades, as well as to swab the outside of the orbiting lab for possible microorganisms as part of a science research investigation. You're looking live into the International Space Station, where today's spacewalkers, NASA astronauts Jessica Meir and Chris Williams, are working through procedures ahead of today's spacewalk. Meir is wearing the suit with the red stripes this morning. This will be Meir's 4th spacewalk of her career, and Williams will be wearing the unmarked spacesuit on his very first spacewalk of his career. Meir arrived at the International Space Station just last month on February 14th, following launch a day prior on a SpaceX Dragon as part of Crew 12. Williams arrived to the International Space Station in November of last year. And this view on your screen here, you do see of NASA astronaut Chris Williams as he works to configure some tools that will be utilized during today's spacewalk. You also will see the crew moving their legs slightly. They are completing what is called aisle or in-suit light exercise procedures. This helps to purge any excess nitrogen from the bloodstream. During today's spacewalk, Meir and Williams will complete tasks to build and install a mounting bracket on the 2A power channel in preparation for the next delivery of ISS rollout solar arrays, or IROSAs, that will be delivered on a future flight. You may recall that over the past few years, we have continued to work on upgrading the power channels on Space Station, and we have already completed the 1A, 1B, 3A, 4B, 4A, and 2B areas of the space station, leaving just 2 power channels remaining to be upgraded. Assisting with suit up this morning were 2 other astronauts, European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adeno, as well as NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway, who are our spacewalk support team today. Once our spacewalkers complete these aisle exercises or in-suit light exercise procedures, they will move into the crew lock portion of the International Space Station and begin depressurization. Once the crew lock is depressurized down to vacuum or 0 pounds per square inch, they'll have the go to open up the hatch and venture out for today's spacewalk.
3, 2, 1, end exercise.
And you did hear some communications there to the crew from the ground here, letting them know to end those exercises. They go through procedures of completing the exercises for a portion of time and then pausing. So currently they are in a pause state, but we will see their legs and arms begin to move slightly once they begin the exercises again here shortly.
Three, two, Start exercise, cycle 8.
You're looking at a live view of NASA astronaut Chris Williams as he continues to step through those procedures of the aisle exercises. And on the left of your screen, you can see NASA astronaut Jessica Meir as she continues to step through those procedures as well. NASA astronauts Chris Williams and Jessica Meir continuing to step through procedures ahead of venturing outside the space station's hatch today. At the beginning of today's spacewalk, the duo will be working together to install the bracket that the new solar arrays will be installed upon, and that will be installed to the 2A truss this morning. This bracket had previous work done to build portions back during a spacewalk last year with NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers.
2, 1, end exercise.
And on your screen here, you can see the areas that have already been built. They are the white and gray portions on your screen there today. The red, blue, and green areas are the portions of the mod kit that are going to be built by NASA astronauts Jessica Meir and Chris Williams during today's spacewalk, following the previous work done by Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers on May 1st of 2025. And you can see a portion of NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway there on your screen.
3, 2, 1, Start exercise, cycle 9.
He is assisting NASA astronauts Jessica Meir and Chris Williams this morning, as well as taking some imagery of them currently. Today's spacewalk will be the 278th in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades, and will be the first of 2026. Again, this spacewalk will be the fourth for NASA astronaut Jessica Meir, who previously conducted 3 spacewalks totaling over 21 hours, and it will be the very first spacewalk for NASA astronaut Chris Williams. In addition to the 2A mod kit build, today's spacewalk will include sampling as part of the ISS external microorganisms experiment, which tests samples collected from life support system vents on the outside of the space station, as well as other areas, to examine whether the spacecraft may release microorganisms, how many, and how far they may travel. And here on your screen, you do see a location of the 3 areas that will be swabbed today as part of this ongoing investigation. This research could help determine whether changes are needed to crewed spacecraft, including spacesuits used to explore destinations where life may exist now or existed previously, and to limit the spread.
3, 2, 1, end exercise.
Again, and to limit the spread of any possible human contamination. This will be the second sample collection for this investigation, following the first sample that was conducted during US EVA 92 in January of 2025.
Three, two, one, Start exercise. Cycle 10, last cycle.
You're continuing to get views on your screen of NASA astronaut Chris Williams on the left and NASA astronaut Jessica Meir on the right in the spacesuit with the red stripe on it as they complete their final aisle or in-suit light exercise procedure to help purge any excess nitrogen from their blood following the pre-breathing procedures of 100% oxygen that was completed earlier this morning. And now coming into view is NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway, who's been assisting the crew this morning, taking some photos, it appears. Both Meir and Hathaway arrived to the International Space Station just last month on NASA's SpaceX Crew 12 mission. And now coming into view is European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adeno, who's also been assisting with suit-up procedures this morning. Later on during today's spacewalk, Hathaway and Adeno will work together to utilize the Canadarm2 into a configuration to allow a lens cap to be installed by today's spacewalkers. In addition to the 4 crew members you see on your screen here, there are 7 humans living and working aboard the International Space Station as we speak. That includes current Space Station Commander Sergei Krutsverchkov, as well as Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Mikheyev and Andrei Fedyaev. Fedyaev on your screen there taking some imagery of Williams, Adeno, Hathaway, and Meir.
Three, two, one, end exercise. That's the final cycle. Congratulations on completing your pre-breathe exercise protocol in the suit. Copy, thumbs up.
And with that,
And airlock, we're back with you, and understand we're going to start in step 5 of 1.2.
Concur.
And a short time ago, we did hear the call that the aisle or in-suit light exercise procedures are complete. Now that this is complete, the crew, namely NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway and European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adeno, will work to get helmet cameras installed to both NASA astronaut Chris Williams and Jessica Meir this morning.
Houston airlock, EV1 has set amp hours to 29.5, EV2 to 29.0.
Copy that. Those are good numbers right there. And just let us know when you turn the HECAs on.
And that communication referring to the HECA, that is the High Definition Extravehicular Mobility Unit Camera Assembly. Again, those cameras we were referring to that are being worked to be installed as we speak.
Houston, we have two green lights, one on each EV1 and EV2 for the HD EMU cameras for your step 7.
Copy that. Thanks, Jack. Hold right here. We'll do some work on the ground, get right back to you.
Sounds great.
And Jack, back with you on here. While we're working on the ground steps in step 8, you are go to complete steps 9 through 15.
Copy. We will put 9 through 15 into work.
Thank you.
And those communications from here on the ground inside Mission Control Houston by today's Capcom, or capsule communicator, Scott Sagatti, up to NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway. Scott will be prime for communicating with the crew inside the International Space Station once today's spacewalk begins, and while they are outside performing the spacewalk today, NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson will be the spacewalk communicator. And in addition to the spacewalk communicator and Capcom, there are several other team members here on your screen that are all being led by NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo during today's Orbit 2 shift. And there you do see on your screen there NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo, NASA astronaut and today's ground IV Tracy Dyson, and the Capcom for today, Scott Sagatti.
Houston airlock TCV setting for EV1 is now 6.
Copy. TCV 6. Thank you.
And you're looking at a view from inside NASA astronaut Jessica Meir's helmet cam as they work to continue configuring tools and tethers, getting everything ready to go ahead of today's spacewalk. On the left of your screen there is NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway, and on the right is European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adeneau, who are assisting. And directly across from NASA astronaut Jessica Meir is Chris Williams. He will be completing his very first spacewalk today. Again, this will be the fourth spacewalk for Meir.
Houston Airlock, we are complete through step 15. Just waiting for your go for the next couple steps.
Great timing, Jack. We are now go on the ground. You have a go in step 16 for MEDOX.
We're go for MEDOX replacement.
And you're getting another bird's eye view perspective, this time from inside NASA astronaut. Time from inside NASA astronaut.
Double checking our steps here. We also need to do step 8, where we're going to turn the HECA power buttons to off before we move on to the MEDOX. Is that right?
Go for you to complete the rest of step 8 as well.
And we did hear some communications between the crew on the space station and the ground discussing MEDOX canisters. That is the metal oxide canister, which is used inside the spacesuit to remove carbon dioxide during spacewalks.
Houston airlock. We're going to put serial number 1031 into Jessica.
Copy that. 1031, that's a good number.
And you are seeing NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway there in the center of your screen holding that MEDOX or metal oxide canister. This is going to be installed, this MEDOX canister is going to be installed inside of NASA astronaut Jessica Meir's spacesuit. You can see they're turning her to get her into a good config to be able to place that MEDOX canister. This canister does remove carbon dioxide during spacewalks and can actually be utilized multiple times. Once complete with today's spacewalks, they can recharge the MEDOX canister. And if you're just joining us, we are continuing to bring you live views inside the International Space Station as two NASA astronauts are suited up and preparing to venture outside the space station's hatch to prepare the 2A power channel for future installation of International Space Station rollout solar arrays. Earlier this week, we did have an EVA preview brief where Flight Director Diana Trujillo walked us through the procedures that will occur during today's spacewalk. Let's take a closer look.
Once the hatch open, we're going to have Jessica coming out. First, she gets the strut bag, which is an 8-foot long bag, and then she gets the cable bag. Then Chris comes out. After they're both outside, Jessica will be the first one that will start translation to the P4 area where the mod kit is located. So you'll see it here in the animation. She starts moving through the truss all the way down to the mod kit. At the same time, Chris is going to do a quick stop, get a WIFX, which is an equipment that will give him more distance once he gets into the foot restraint, so he can reach to the mod kit itself. Once they get there, they're going to cinch down the bags, and then they begin the installation. So they start with the mid strut, and then Jessica gets the other side, the left mid strut and the lower strut, hands it to Chris, who's already on the foot restraint. Then Jessica goes around, and Chris will then be turned so that he can be facing on the other side of the canister, where he will start now working with Jessica to put the mid struts themselves. Okay, so here's where they bolt the second mid strut. And after that, the whole assembly of the mod kit is now completed with the cables that will be required for later on. After that's completed, Jessica is going to go down on one side of the area where they were, put the DDCU jumpers, while Chris is moving now to the race ring, as I mentioned before, to take a snapshot of the current state. So here he goes. He takes a few pictures for us to understand the state. And then he comes back. Once he comes back to the same location where we had cinched down the 2 bags, he will begin now the torque reset. So open the cable bag, get the tool that he needs, and then he begins the torque resets for several of the boxes that you see here. Once that is completed, Chris is coming back to the airlock where he starts doing the microorganisms. So you can see that he has the canisters on his side. He brings in the tool, he does the swabbing, and then he puts it back into the tool. At the moment he puts it on the tool, it locks in the sample, and so he goes for the next sample. There's 7 samples that we're gonna go do. The minimum number for our activity this go around is 5 samples. So in this specific view, you'll see him going back inside the airlock to do 2 of the swaps that he has on his SEU. In the meantime, Jessica now has made it to a location on the truss where the robotic arm gets closer to her. She puts the cover on the camera itself for the robotic arm, and then the robotic arm moves out of the way and she makes it back to the airlock. And here you see Jessica putting the cable back inside, and then back inside the airlock for the end of our EVA. And that will conclude EVA 94.
A closer look at what we can expect during today's spacewalk. On your screen, you're now seeing European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adenau working to get the MEDOX canister installed inside Chris Williams' spacesuit. And we are in a brief expected handover between our satellites, but we'll regain views and communications here shortly with the crew. But you're currently looking live inside Mission Control Houston at the flight control team that is being led by NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo. Next to Deanna, you see NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson, who will be our ground IV and communicating with today's spacewalkers once the spacewalk is underway and the crew is outside the International Space Station. And to Tracy's right, you see NASA Capcom Scott Zagatti. And the flight control team that you do see on your screen here is going to be working through procedures today as part of U.S. Spacewalk 94, where NASA astronauts Jessica Meir and Chris Williams will exit the space station's Quest airlock to prepare the 2A power channel for future installation of International Space Station rollout solar arrays. Once these arrays are installed, they will provide additional power for the orbiting lab, including for critical support of its safe and controlled deorbit. Additionally, swabs will be taken outside of the space station.
We've installed 1031 into EV1, 1032 into EV2, and we've now paused the pre-breathe clock at GMT 1112 in step 11. So looking for your go to move on to step 12.
Copy that, Jack. All good numbers right there. You are go to pick up to step 12.
And just to finish up there, in addition to the 2A power channel mod kit installation, the crew will also swab the outside of the space station to test for possible microorganisms as part of an ongoing investigation. And we do have views back inside the International Space Station here. On your left is NASA astronaut Chris Williams, who will be completing his first spacewalk today. And on the right of your screen, suited up, is NASA astronaut Jessica Meir, who will complete her fourth spacewalk of her career today. And a few more photos taking place as NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway and European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adeneau continue to step through procedures ahead of today's start of the spacewalk.
Houston airlock, step 18. We pulled out detox canisters 0 to 5.
And Jack, we had a little bit of comm dropout right there. Can you repeat those numbers again?
And I'm being made fun of for saying detox instead of medox.
All good, Jack. We'll forgive you on that one. Hey, could you repeat those numbers again? There's a bit of a comm dropout.
All right, those serial numbers were 0005, and the second serial number 0010.
All right, perfect. That's what we were expecting. Thanks, Jack. And with that comm dropout, that conveniently covered your comm, so that worked out.
Sorry, Houston, we just stepped on you. Can you repeat your last?
Nothing important right there. We were just letting you know we had that comm dropout, and we missed your ECOC call, which I'm sad for at this point. But everything's going well. Thank you.
Sure, what kind of ECOC call I was supposed to make. So what are you looking for there?
Nothing needed right there, so forget we even talked about it.
Copy.
And Jack, FYI, on the ground, we see the purge complete. We're ready for the purge valve close whenever you guys are.
Airlock purge valves are now down and locked. EMU pre-breathe, into pre-breathe clock restarted, GMT 1119.
1119, thank you.
And you're looking at a view of NASA astronaut Chris Williams suited up in his space suit ahead of today's spacewalk. Our other spacewalker today is NASA astronaut Jessica Meir, who has previously completed 3 spacewalks. Prime for assisting today is NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway, as well as European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adeneau. They recently stepped through procedures to install the MEDOX, or metal oxide canister, into both Meir and Williams' spacesuit. The MEDOX canister does remove excess carbon dioxide during spacewalks. And also on your screen there on the left, you see Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Kutsverchkov, who is the current Expedition 74 commander.
Houston, airlock 2, good manual leak checks. We're back into step 17 of 1.225. We're going to start pulling them off ETAs and put the safers on them.
Copy that, Jack. We see the same. Back to step 17. Thank you, sir.
Okay, and then one other data piece to add. Chris has had quite a bit of trouble today moving his O2 actuator from off to press. He's been able to do it on his own, but we just want to give you a heads up that it's been sticky, and it's been a little bit difficult for him to get it into that position. He's happy with it. We just want you guys to track him.
And copy that, Jack. Thanks for the added information right there. We'll track it down here as well.
And with those communications, the next procedures that NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway and European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adeneau will help step through with the crew ahead of this spacewalk is getting their SAFERs installed. The SAFER is the simplified aid for EVA rescue and would be used in the unlikely event that an astronaut were to become untethered from the space station. The SAFER would allow the crew member to safely propel them back to the space station. Sometimes you may refer to it being called the space jetpack. So they're working together now to get those installed onto NASA astronaut Jessica Meir's spacesuit. And once the SAFERs are successfully installed, the astronauts will move through the equipment lock portion of the airlock into the crew lock section. Now coming into view is one of those SAFERs, or simplified aid for EVA rescue. Adeneau and Hathaway continuing to work together to install the SAFER onto NASA astronaut Jessica Meir's spacesuit. This will be her 4th spacewalk of her career. And again, the primary tasks for today's spacewalk are to prepare the 2A power channel for future installation of International Space Station rollout solar arrays. Once installed, these arrays will provide additional power for the orbiting laboratory. Additionally, swabs will be taken outside of the space station to test for possible microorganisms. Adeno and Hathaway continuing to work to install that safer to Jessica Meir's spacesuit. Earlier this morning, the crew worked through procedures to pre-breathe 100% oxygen in order to purge any excess nitrogen from their bodies, and then they completed their in-suit light exercise or IL activities. These movements help acclimate the body to the lower pressure of the spacesuit and purge excess nitrogen from their body slowly to avoid getting the bends or decompression sickness, similar to what divers on Earth can experience. Once Meir's safer is successfully installed, she will be moved into the crew lock. Inside the crew lock currently, you see on the top of your screen there is the strut bag. The strut bag is about 8 feet long. It weighs over 300 pounds and contains the pieces of the mid struts and left lower strut, which will be assembled and installed during today's spacewalk. A portion of the mod kit has already previously been installed and built during a spacewalk last May by NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers. And NASA astronaut Jessica Meir now being moved into that crew lock portion of the International Space Station by NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway, who you can see there on the bottom of your screen, as well as European Space Agency astronaut Sophie Adno a little further back. Once Meir is situated inside of the airlock, they'll work to install Chris Williams' safer.
And Jack, Houston on 1 on here. We're watching the Safer Dawn on here just to make sure that we're all in sync. We'd like you to verify the upper mounting pins on EV1 Safer. Make sure that they're fully in the groove and they're locked. And Jack, if you are talking to Houston, I cannot hear you.
Happy Houston, sorry about that. Just so we're on the same page, on the safer, there's a pin at the top, alignment pin at the bottom, and the latch in the center. And you're asking us to check the alignment pin at the top on both sides to make sure it's seated in the rail.
Affirm, that's exactly what we're looking for. FYI, 50 seconds to a handover.
It worked.
Hathaway and Adno working to confirm that Meir's safer or simplified aid for EVA rescue is properly installed. Again, the safer would be utilized in the very unlikely event that a crew member were to become tethered from the International Space Station. If that were to occur, the safer would enable propulsion to safely get back to the space station. And we are in a brief handover between our satellite communication system. You're looking at a live view inside Mission Control Houston. The team is currently being led by Flight Director Deanna Trujillo, who you see on your screen, as well as Tracy Dyson, who will serve as our ground IV today, communicating with our spacewalkers once the spacewalk is underway. Today's Capcom, or capsule communicator, is Scott Sagatti, and he'll be primed for communicating with the crew inside the International Space Station. And a view back inside
Houston, airlock, we're back with you. Both Soph and I verified the alignment pins, both the top and bottom on the left and right side of Jessica Safer are properly seated in their tracks.
Copy that, Jack. Thanks for the check on that. Go to continue.
And
Jessica's in the airlock. We're moving to Chris is Safer.
Copy that. Moving over to Chris.
And with the confirmation that Meir Safer is installed, Hathaway now is going to work to do the same to NASA astronaut Chris Williams' spacesuit. Again, this will be Williams' first spacewalk of his career. And we are in another handover period between our satellites here. It does appear that fellow Flight Director Greg Whitney is here in the room with us as well, just speaking with NASA Flight Director Deanna Trujillo, who is the lead during today's spacewalk. The main tasks of today's spacewalk are to prepare the 2A power channel for future installation of International Space Station rollout solar arrays, which will provide additional power for the orbiting lab. In addition to this, there will be an ongoing science experiment sampling of the outside of the International Space Station to test for possible microorganisms. And on your screen, you are seeing NASA astronaut Jack Hathaway on the left there, continuing to work to get the safer installed on NASA astronaut Chris Williams' spacesuit and then move him into the crew lock. Once both Meir and Williams are inside the crew lock, depressurization procedures will begin. And we are seeing both Williams and Meir inside the crew lock now. Meir is wearing the spacesuit with the red stripe, and Williams is wearing the unmarked spacesuit today. Will be the 4th spacewalk for Jessica Meir and the 1st for Chris Williams. And if you're just joining us this morning, we are continuing to bring you live coverage ahead of the start of a spacewalk outside the International Space Station, where NASA astronauts Jessica Meir and Chris Williams will exit the station's Quest airlock to prepare the 2A power channel for future installation of International Space Station rollout solar arrays. This will be the 278th spacewalk in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades, and the very first of 2026. This will be the 4th spacewalk for Meir and the 1st for Williams. The prime task for today's spacewalkers is to complete the build and installation of a mod kit that is partially built outside the space station following a May 1st spacewalk by NASA astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers. In addition to the mod kit build, swabs will be taken outside the International Space Station and tested for possible microorganisms as part of an ongoing science experiment.
Station, we are reviewing this config, and we'll verbalize it to you, so follow along.
Sophie, back with you on here. You came in pretty broken. Can you repeat, please?
We are starting now the tethers config, check of all of the tethers.
All right, copy that. We're following along in the procedure, Sophie. Thank you.
Copy, so